everybody, welcome to Before College TV. Today, I am with three guests, all McNair scholars, all from Roosevelt University. They're fascinating, they're interesting, they're dynamic, they're charismatic, they're fighters, they're dreamers. They're just an incredible group of women, and I'm so grateful I get to spend this time meeting them and sharing their lives with you. Autumn, Francesca, Monica, welcome. How's it
Thank
going?
you.
This is exciting. I know I'm building you up. I hope that that feels good. Like, do you feel like I built you up too much?
No, love it. Love it.
Yeah. No, so when I when I heard that I get to talk to McNair scholars from Roosevelt, I was so exciting. And I was mentioning this before we started recording, because for people who aren't familiar with McNair, who do you think could tell me, Autumn, what is a McNair scholar?
A McNair scholar is someone who drives through undergrad school in hopes of going to grad school, whether it's to complete a master's degree or a doctorate degree. But in essence, it is someone who is willing to further their education past just a basic bachelor's degree.
So, Francesca, is this true?
Yes, it is true.
True?
Most of McNair scholars are actually people who are low income or minority or both. So it's really about diversity and just kind of like pushing through like the barriers and society's perceptions and things like that. So
Yeah. And Monica, had you heard about McNair? Did you even know what that was before you arrived on campus?
No, I didn't actually until I was sent a couple emails, around the year. They tell us about events and McNair was one of them. And it seemed interesting. So I did check it out at a meeting when we were on campus.
Like, how do you even know you want to go to grad school? I mean, most people just get on campus and they're like, I don't even know how I got here. I'm just so happy to be here. But you got there and you're like, yeah, grad school could be cool. Like, how does that work?
For me, it was a weird path because when I chose to do my major, which is psychology, I only thought I had to do a 4-year degree until I went to just a regular checkup. And she asked me, what do you want to do in college? And this is when I was in high school. She said, oh, you have to go to a lot of school for that. I was like, all right, I'm going to grad school then.
Right. So it was in high school when you shared your dream, the advisor or counselor is like, you're not going to be done. This is not 4 and done.
Yeah.
This is 4 and more. Okay.
Mhm.
Gotcha. So speaking of dreams, I love hearing about your dreams. I want to know about your dreams. Monica, let's start with you. Tell me your dream.
I just want to help people, at the end of the day, which is something a lot of people say. But I feel that I have a lot to give out, and I try my hardest on a daily basis to just do what I can to be kind. And I think with my studies and things like that, I just want to kind of help kids, help teenagers and young adults deal with mental health issues or guidance and therapy and counseling and things like that, because it is something that isn't talked about a lot, especially when I was younger, when it comes to knowing about your mental health and how to keep it healthy. So I want to be that person to help these kids.
That's awesome. Well, I'm excited to hear about your journey and why mental health is so important to you. I have a therapist I see regularly, and it's something I started to do about 3 years ago. And it's crazy because I've been offering advice forever and, written these books and, I don't know. I think I was scared maybe. It's weird, but it's been great and liberating and exciting. So I want to celebrate that with you. Autumn, I want to know, what's your dream?
I've always grown up being taken care of and things like that. And it's made me such a kind-hearted person. And all I want to do is help people. But my family is also military oriented. So my focus is military personnel. Having a concentration in forensic psychology could help me help soldiers who have done something wrong, but they were not necessarily in their right state of mind. That's something that's like really close to my heart, especially since I know that a lot of soldiers, they suffer from PTSD. A lot of soldiers are also unwilling to actually reach out for help. So I kind of want to be that shoulder that you can lean on, the person that they can come to, you know.
That's fascinating. And do you have family members? I think you mentioned that are in the armed forces.
Yeah, I have two brothers and one sister. My sister, she's in Germany right now. I have a brother in Alaska and I have a brother in Hawaii. One of them is a Marine and the other two are Army.
Wow. So have you thought of enlisting?
I did ROTC my freshman year of college, which was amazing. Don't get me wrong, but that was my field training. I love the military and I congratulate them on being able to do that. But as far as putting myself in the field, I think I'm more of a behind the desk kind of person.
So you can try ROTC like like sample it like an appetizer almost or like once you're in ROTC, aren't you in ROTC?
Pretty much. But when I transferred, things kind of got complicated. If I wouldn't have transferred for schools, I would probably still be in ROTC. And I promise you, I would not be complaining.
Right. Because I'm just trying to make it clear for other people who are in ROTC, because if they're in it and they're like, this is not for me, that's a different situation, right? Because it's not like,
There are ways for you to come out of it.
cool.
Because I know a lot of first years who didn't make it in ROTC, they were just like, nah, I don't know if I like this. You can come out of it. I kind of like an elective, but the way that ROT structures your college experience is a lot different from other course structures. Like you said, once you're in it, it like sets the entire path for college. But if you feel like it's not something that you can do, they're not going to keep you and be like, you're in it. Now you're there. That's it.
Right.
No.
Okay, cool. So we're going to learn about you and we're going to learn about your transferring, because I know you've been to some places and experienced some things, I would imagine. So we'll uncover these things in these places, right? You think? You're going to share some of
Yes.
that?
I am willing. Would you like for me to continue?
Oh, you know what? I want to meet Francisca, and then I want to get into everybody's story. And I'm especially interested. I love your pain is temporary, victory is forever. So we're gonna dig in the pain. If you want to share the pain, because the pain's the most interesting part, right, Francesca?
Oof, sometimes.
It's the most real part, I think. You know,
Yes.
we were having this conversation, and I know a lot of you are you working with mental health. I know, Francesca, you're business management, which is you have to have a strong foundation to be able to work through business because you get beat up a lot. But we were talking about mental health and defining it. I was talking to my kids about this, that mental health doesn't mean you're always happy and things are always great. It means that you have the right reactions to the right situations. So if a situation is painful, you feel pain. If a situation is joyful, you feel joy. If a situation is pleasurable, you feel pleasure. So it's that idea of actually feeling what these situations should be, which I don't think people really talk about, right, Monica? I mean, would you agree with that?
Yeah, it's not the most accepted topic always to talk about out loud in an open conversation, but I think things are changing recently.
I hope so. It's interesting also because, I love talking about everything, and I love being a male here with all of you. I think that I always learn, and especially when it comes to your experiences, which I can never quite appreciate because I haven't lived them. I love learning about them and helping other people to appreciate those as well. So, Francesca, what's your professional dream?
Own a marketing firm. Right now, I'm looking into Black businesses, the lack of resources that they have in comparison to non-Black businesses. So the ultimate dream is to have a nonprofit and have a marketing firm. So the marketing firm just helping like any Black startups kind of get themselves out there, do what they have to do without delving too much into their pockets to pay somebody to do what I can just do for maybe like a year or two pro bono, and then we'll discuss something along what's acceptable for them at that point.
It sounds amazing and totally needed, of course. And if there's someone out there watching or listening, when it comes to your marketing, the thing that you love to do the most, where you think you can offer something today, even like part-time or over the summer, is there a particular area where you feel you have just, great strengths or superpowers?
I think it's just my willingness to understand what they need and display that like on demand. So I can have one conversation with you and I get a feel for whatever it is that your audience may be or what you're expecting for yourself, your business, and kind of like channel that and just make one template for you. And that's your template. Like
Okay.
that's what you stand for. That's what you're gonna
Awesome.
do.
So just to even go a little deeper, because, I'm always like, there might be someone out there who's like, I want to give Francesca a chance, or I'd like to learn. Do you have something right now that you can do to help that nonprofit, whether it's through social media or through event planning or through promotions and things of that
So I've
nature?
actually done a little bit of both. Right now, I've done social media for 10 years. And then I've done like ads, like Facebook ads, Twitter ads, and Instagram ads the past like 5 years. And then like editing. So anything like Adobe, Canva, anything like iMovie related, like trailers, things like that. So I've kind of dived into like a lot of things, but social media is probably the most experience I have.
Yeah, that's really cool. You've been doing this for 10 years. So,
Yeah. I actually started when I was 16.
oh, wow. Okay. So you
Yeah.
started a while ago. And then when it comes to your undergrad experience, so you're 26 now, is that right?
I just turned 24.
24. So you've been doing it for
So
six.
actually started when I was 14. Yeah. Because I
Okay.
started as like, it wasn't like an intern, but it was just me like observing under someone. And then she actually ended up putting me on the roster when I was 16. So I did her media, handling her media. And then when I was 18, I was head for her marketing. So it's been a little bit of a road, but I connected with her through Twitter. So social media, guys, social media is great.
Yeah.
Take advantage.
That's great. That's great. I'm someone who's like I'm a big believer in dreams. And I love watching people's dreams come true. So I think everybody's deserving and worthy of living them, but it's just being able to get through it. So I would say, you all seem to be deep into living your dream. And I'm curious to just get a sense of how you got here and why you're interested in the things that you love to do. So, Monica, if you can do me a favor, take me back to middle school. What are family dynamics? What was it like for you going to high school? And was college something that was always part of the plan?
So I live in like the Midway area of Chicago. So it's not in the suburbs. It's also not in the city. It was pretty regular. I'm the youngest of three boys in my household, in my very Latino household also at that. So a lot of me growing up was, kind of like the princess, things like that, which totally didn't rub off on me. I would say, I feel like, but growing up, education and academia and just making sure I do well in those things was always super important. Both of my parents immigrated here when they were younger. So for them, school wasn't a priority. College, especially, they didn't go to college, or my mom even didn't complete college because of moving here, having to take care of me and my brothers and all my cousins and things like that. So it was pushed onto me to do well. I think I did pretty okay for where I am now. Thinking about schools was always super important. It did change a little. I always knew I wanted to go for college, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. Art has been something super important for me in my life. So for a while, I wanted to be a photographer. Then I wanted to be a fashion designer. And then I wanted to be an interior designer. In high school, I did theater for 4 years. So that was a big decision I had to make between theater and psych. But I found that I had a love for psych as well.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about you socially. So if there's someone out there who wants to, they want to figure out, am I like Monica?
I definitely was shy up until probably my sophomore year of high school. For most of my middle school life, all my teachers would tell my mom and like parent teacher conferences, like, oh, she's super smart, she's super sweet, she just doesn't talk enough. And that was really it for a very long time until I went into high school and I went into theater. I found my place in the backstage area, doing a lot of technical work, doing a lot of props until I took a theater class. And that's when I was forced to like kind of break out of my shell.
You two know Monica pretty well, right? Yeah. Would you agree with Monica's assessment of herself?
Yeah.
I think she still is a little
I
quiet,
still think she's great.
but she's definitely an amazing person.
Yeah, so sweet. She's so sweet.
That's so nice. Monica, did you know that you're still a little quiet?
Yeah, I think Zoom. I think it's the Zoom thing.
Once you get back to campus. And I want everyone to know that your background is so funky. It's so cool. And you did that yourself, right?
Yeah, I painted this, I think it was last summer. So, middle of the pandemic, I just was like, I need to upgrade my room. So, I just painted my whole wall.
That's awesome. I love it. And you're a first gen student. So navigating all of this, I'm sure, was not easy.
Yeah, it was definitely difficult, especially now in this like grad school phase. When I was applying to college, my older brothers did also try to find the same route, but they all didn't actually get degrees or it took them a lot longer. So it was a little harder applying to college. I had to rely on friends' help and counselors' help because they just didn't remember the process of going through it all. And especially now for grad school, no one in my immediate family has gone to grad school. My sister-in-law has, and then my cousin's fiance also have, but they just married in recently. So it's scary. It's definitely terrifying with this whole process that nobody I am close to understands either. So being in McNair helps a lot, but it is such a terrifying process.
What's so terrifying?
Probably not knowing what to do, not knowing if this is what I want to do. That's how I was feeling like probably a few years ago. We talk about this a lot in our sessions, but just the whole imposter syndrome idea where am I good enough for grad school? Is that a place that has a place for me? Something that I have definitely struggled with throughout college, honestly, throughout high school too. Like, am I good enough to go into these places that are so astounding and amazing? And I think that's probably was the scariest thing about this all.
And are you good enough?
I hope so. I think so. I think so.
As you were saying that, I'm like, hell yeah, you're good enough. Like, hell yeah. Like, there's no question. I was trying to give you a softball to be like, yeah, I'm good enough. But I know you are. But I can't imagine how hard that would be to have to work through all of this for the first time. And I'm glad you have McNair and these other women in your corner who clearly want to support you and help you. Is that true, Autumn?
Of course.
Yeah.
Us women have to stick together.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you found each other. The McNair journey, it's fascinating. And I know I mentioned that before. It's like not only going to college, but then the idea of getting another degree or getting a master's or even getting a PhD. Or I was talking to a woman the other day. I've been trying to get a hold of her so I can interview her. And she was amazing. She had kids young and she went back to school when she was probably in her 30s and got her undergraduate degree. And then someone said, you should try and do this. And then she got her graduate degree. And then someone said, you're really incredible with what you do. And then she got her PhD. And she is this woman who's, probably maybe she's in her 50s now and started off on a path that was not a PhD path. And she now is an advisor with a McNair program in Wisconsin. I'm just thinking when you're like, us women need to stay together. I'm not a woman, but I want to find you other people who can help you because it's a journey, and I'm just excited for you. Now, if I say Latinx, that's all encompassing, right, Monica?
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah, that's because I know different terms, and I always put myself out there when I have these conversations, and I'll say things a certain way, hoping that's the right way to say it. But being part of the Latinx community, a growing community, and being a first gen, there's even more people in your corner. So that's exciting, and I'd love to hear your journey and how you got to Roosevelt, and we'll talk about that. But Autumn, I would love to go to your home. You're the youngest of how many kids?
Like 12 of us.
Now you hesitated. Is that because it's such a big number, or sometimes there's just so many it's hard to keep track?
Yeah. Yeah.
Both of them?
Yeah.
So how old is your oldest sibling?
Like 34. As the youngest, I was always like picked on and tormented, but in the most loving way. Between me and my closest brother to my age, we were 3 years apart. So when I got to like high school, he was a senior. So the relationships that they created kind of helped me out. I didn't really have many friends my own age. I always hung around my siblings and their friends. I was never allowed to go anywhere by myself. And I think that kind of influenced it a lot. I was really quiet. I read a lot. I didn't like to go places. I didn't like to be around people only because like I'm around people 24/7. So I always liked my peace and quiet. But my family, they were always there for me. They're such wonderful people, even though they can be a little annoying.
Well, there's a lot of them. It's so interesting because when you said, "Oh, my family," I was thinking, "Oh no, like this is not going to go well." But it has gone well. So you're really loved and supported.
Yeah, despite the large numbers and the in-house bullying, we love each other very much. Like we're actually a very close family. I do talk to a lot of my siblings all the time. I know a lot of people, when I say that I have so many siblings, they're like, how do you keep track? It's actually really hard. A lot of us have gone our separate ways now. Like I said, I'm the youngest and I'm 21 years old. So not everybody is in Illinois anymore, but it's definitely very interesting. And they're always there to back me up. Once I graduate, it's going to be like a family reunion because everybody's going to come in from out of state just to see me graduate. So it's like really exciting.
Oh, that's awesome. And did your parents go to college?
My mom did. So my mom and my eldest sister, my mom, she got her bachelor's degree in medicine. And my sister, she did her first 2 years, I believe, in college before she joined the army.
Okay, so she went to college and then great. And then socially, like in high school, you were all over the place. You got real involved all of a sudden, came out of your shell.
Oh my God, high school was such busy years for me. Like my first 2 years of high school, I was such a busy kid. I joined like all the clubs. I was always involved in different activities. I played volleyball, which was amazing. And it was very busy life.
What about the second 2 years?
My last 2 years, I did in the state of Alabama because my mother remarried.
Okay.
Those were much quieter years. I was still pretty active. Like I did set designs for theater. So I was a very creative kid as well. But I didn't do like volleyball or anything like that. I wasn't as active as before, but I was still pretty active.
Okay. Well, cool. And that will explain your move, where you ended up going to college your first year, which we're going to get into in a little bit, and then how you ended up back in Chicago at Roosevelt. So that will be great. Francesca, thanks for being so patient. I know that you are not from the Chicago area originally. Is that correct? Yeah. So you're a Minnesotan.
I am.
Yeah. Do you like the Twins baseball team?
I'm not a big sports person.
Okay, so the Vikings. So like the Vikings, you don't care.
I'm like, hey, if they win, wonderful. If they don't,
Okay, that's easy. That's easy because Chicago, we take our sports pretty seriously.
yeah.
Mike is like, oh yeah, we do.
Yep.
Right. I'm a White Sox fan.
Good choice.
I'll put that out there. Maybe this year it's easy, especially this year, just given crazy how well they're doing. But I like Minnesota too. I think Minnesota is a great place, and I do a lot of work out there and have family there. It's very similar. But Francesca, I want to hear through your eyes and with my ears your experience. So let me have a handle on what it was like to grow up and be.
I'm from like a very rural town. I was actually one of two Black students in like the entire school. And then the other person ended up transferring. So then it was just like me after my sister graduated. It was like a very, very small. Everybody knew everybody's business. That's how small it was. It was an interesting experience. I was definitely not involved really in high school. I was in student council for a little minute, but other than that, I was pretty much to myself or with like the one close friend that I had, just because I was like, this is like an interesting environment for me to be in. And like I actually had transferred from this other school when I was younger because my mom found the house that she liked. And it happened to be very, very far away. So I went from being with majority of people of color to like no one but me. I definitely didn't know who I was in high school or anything like that. And like had the mindset of, okay, how can I be like the approachable Black girl? So it's very much that for me.
What does that mean, being the approachable Black girl?
It was like part of me, wanted to be like everybody's friend. And I just wanted to like be like very involved with people in their lives and like be able to like go to like everybody's functions at their houses, things like that. But then part of me realized I was like, like this isn't that. And like I found myself almost trying to force relationships with people because I had like this like intense desire to be included in everything, that I was just like trying to make myself be what I thought that people expected of me or the friend that they wanted to have, instead of really just like honing on to who I was or who I wanted to be. So
Yeah, Autumn, you seem to relate to this.
It is very much so like smothering your own personality so that you can fit in better, or like she said, to be more approachable. I think that that is something that a lot of young Black girls, both of us included, because I know exactly what you're talking about. I definitely understand that. It's definitely a thing. And it's not something that we should be proud of, because it happens so often that when young girls finally do get to college, they have a hard time finding themselves and they have a hard time being themselves. So it can be much of an identity crisis issue that happens, especially as you get older, because it's so hard to break from this ritual that you're so used to.
I'm curious, and again, this is where like I'm really honest and just discovering, but how does race play into assuming this role and interacting in a particular way?
I think it has a huge part to do with it, just because of course, like me being the only one, I got the questions, the very awkward questions, sometimes offensive questions. So I kind of had to almost take in everything that everyone expected of what it meant to be Black. So I kind of had to take in everybody's expectations, everybody's stigmas, all of that, and deal with it accordingly. And sometimes it was very draining. And I had to put on this face like, oh no, it's okay that you asked me, but I'm really thinking like, it's not okay. I don't understand why we're having this conversation. But I also didn't want to be deemed as the aggressive Black girl or angry or things like that, like the common notions like attached.
Yeah.
So I tried very hard to disassociate from those, so much so that I was not setting boundaries for myself and just not holding them accountable for certain things, because I was trying so hard to be the opposite and to be very much intertwined into their lifestyle as well, that I wasn't like, you know what, this isn't okay. You should be talking like this, or you shouldn't be saying certain things. So it was just kind of me shoving it all deep inside until I was just done.
Yeah. I think it's got to be so hard to not be able to authentically respond because you don't want people to make assumptions, and you're constantly having to fight the assumptions while still coming into your own, to who you are. And you can be upset and you can be frustrated, but it sounds like you have to mute that.
Yeah.
Is that accurate?
Yeah.
Yeah. And Monica, do you have anything to add to any of this?
Yes. Well, I can't relate because I'm Latina, but I completely also understand and sympathize with what you're saying. I did grow up in a mainly like Latinx area community, but as I went to college and growing up and getting away from that, it was kind of a culture shock with having to be like the only Latinx person in a room and realizing that you kind of have to be the person to represent your race, which is terrifying because you're just one person and you have your own individual personality and identity and things like that. But it's also kind of you're being watched and always scrutinized for who you are because you are different simply. It seemed a lot of the times that instead of just simply being able to be present wasn't enough to other people, that you had to either explain who you are because you're different or you had to assimilate to try to fit in. And that's something I did struggle a lot with growing up because I didn't look a lot like the other Latinos in my area. So it was kind of, I have to explain who I am or try to be exactly like them. And it's definitely, especially at a young age, it's so hard because then you're trying to figure out who you are and then you're trying to grow up and then you have to deal with the weight of like race and racism also. And it's a lot of pressure.
Yeah. Autumn, you were saying that it was challenging to go from high school to college and especially the identity piece of who you are and having to tiptoe around your emotions, it sounds like at times, right? Because it's so hard just to be a teenager, but to be a teenager and to be the only one of who you are in a community that doesn't understand, there's the added pressure. And then you go to college and you are in a new place surrounded by new people and you don't even know who you are or how to assimilate because you've been working so hard to be a people pleaser and haven't been able to understand how to please yourself. Is that a good summary?
Great
Yeah.
summer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That first year in college is really hard. Changes are hard. And I know, Monica, you were talking about how terrifying it is even to think about going to grad school. And I'm very confident that you're going to be incredible. I have no doubt because you have community. You're unbelievably strong. You're here. You're part of this. You're part of a program. It's going to be difficult and uncomfortable because transitions are. But when it comes to being a graduate and being a McNair scholar, you have an enormous community if you're willing to ask for help. How good are you? How comfortable are you asking for help?
I am trying to work on it. For a long time, I did not ask for help because I felt like I had to do things on my own. But especially within the last year, especially when the pandemic happened, I realized that there are moments that I don't have to do things by myself, and reaching out to professors or friends or anything and asking for help has been something I've worked on a lot in the last year. Either having deadlines extended or just needing to talk to someone honestly I've been working on it, but I think I'm a lot better than I would be like 2 or 3 years ago.
I suck at asking for help. And I don't know, it's probably just because I grew up having to do things on my own and everyone always expected so much of me. So for me, asking for help is like a sign of weakness. And I learned very early that you should never show weakness, like ever. So I'm still pretty bad at it. I am working on it though. I'm getting better. When I have to ask for help, it is me expressing that this is something that I cannot do. It is something that is out of my control. And growing up in a community where that was like a big no, it's really hard. It is very, very hard for me to go up to people and be like, can you help me? It's not something that I learned growing up. That is not, no.
Have you met people who have made it clear that you're not supposed to know all the answers?
Yes.
I think that's for anybody who's watching this, you're not supposed to know the answers. Like Autumn, you don't know everything. You're capable of learning everything. And like that's the beauty of it for anybody. We don't know and we're not good at things we do the first time most of the time. And the only way to get better is to practice and ask for help, which is a sign that you're hungry to learn. And it's a sign that you are strong enough to know that you're not always going to know. I think that's like the crazy part of asking for help, is that it's a sign of courage and strength. Would you agree with that, Autumn?
Yeah, I agree.
It's just
I agree. It takes a very, very big person to admit when they need assistance.
yeah. Well, it's interesting because I'm a big shot, because I'm like, I'm able to say this. And, of course, I grew up in a very different environment. I was talking to someone about being a white male and being born into privilege and how much I struggled. And, I mentioned I didn't even, get therapy till I was, much older. I waited a long time and struggled a lot. And I just think of like how defective I felt and how afraid I was, because I was supposed to know the answers and born into a place where I'm not supposed to experience certain things. And I think there was just a tremendous amount of shame that made it so I didn't want to ask for help. So if you're anyone who identifies with me as well, I think we're all not great at asking for help. Francisco, what's your take on this? How great are you at asking for help?
It literally takes me being at almost my breaking point for me to go out of my way to ask for help. I think just because I consider myself like a very independent person, even though like I've had support and things like that around me. But I'm still like, no, I can do it. Like I can do it by myself. Like I'm fine. Like I can handle it. Like that's always my mindset about it. So when there does come a time that I'm like completely drained or I'm just confused or whatever, I'll literally wait so last minute. I'm trying to get out of it slowly but surely.
I hope it's okay how I've been asking questions and talking about these. Is it all right? Yeah. Okay. Because I do. It's like, it's sensitive stuff. It's the stuff that keeps people from persisting, because this part of asking for help, and I think especially with McNair scholars who are so driven and have big ambitions, as you go to grad school and as you progress, you're not only going to need to ask for help, but you're going to be in a position to make it comfortable for others to ask for help. So I think those lessons also of Autumn practicing asking for help, it's more of an exercise in experiencing what it's like for the sake of being able to help others as you note the feelings. So it's not even you doing it for you, it's you doing it for others, so that you can then report back and be able to connect and help others to do that. So it's kind of a fun game of like the ask for help game as you go through this process. So I want to know how you got to college and how you paid for college. So Autumn, you started off at some other schools. Tell us your college journey, how you arrived at Roosevelt.
Well, I started off at Austin Peay State University, which is in Clarksville, Tennessee. So it's really close to Nashville. It was a predominantly white university, but it was a really good school. As far as like paying for college, I got some assistance from the school, but mostly my mother and I, we had to take out loans to help pay for college. I did enjoy my first year of school, but because of the way my financial aid was set up, I couldn't stay there. I did study abroad there though, which was amazing. I studied abroad in Argentina for 1 month and I had the time of my life. My Spanish is rusty. I have not been practicing the way that I should, but I definitely enjoyed it. It was very fun to go out of the country and experience that. I am afraid of heights, so long plane rides like that was absolutely terrible, but it was really awesome. Like I did a lot of amazing things at Austin Peay. And if it wasn't for like the financial situation, I would have stayed.
Okay.
After that, I came home back to Chicago. I went to CLC for a year for my sophomore year before transferring to Robert Morris originally. And then Robert Morris ended up integrating with Roosevelt. And that is how I got to Roosevelt.
Nice. And you are what year now?
Going into my senior year.
Senior year. And when it comes to your experience at Roosevelt, How did you choose your major, and how have you connected with the people there?
Honestly, out of all of the schools I have attended, I think Roosevelt is my best. And that's not to knock some of my other professors, because I made great professors in my other schools, of course. But I think far as like guidance wise and assistance, Roosevelt has been the best. They have always been there to assist me. And whenever I have questions, I always email them and they are quick to respond. So they're very, very helpful. Academically speaking, my professors have been pretty amazing. I only had one bad experience, but that is all in the past.
That's good. Only one bad experience for so many classes. Is there someone in particular who really helped you, and how did they help you?
I would have to say Dr. Leela Ellis Nelson. She is also my current mentor for the McNair program and practically my psychologist. She is like the most amazing person on the planet. Her research is also very fascinating. So I enjoy talking to her a lot. She helps me out a lot. She's been helping me out for like the past 3 months. When it came to picking what I wanted to do for this summer's research, me and Dr. Leela had a sit down to discuss how I would conduct my summer research, which is going to be a comprehensive literature review. It's going to be a pretty long paper. I'm working on it. And she has just been there to support me. She proofreads, things like that. She always tells me what I'm missing, whether something sounds good, whether it can be spruced up a bit more, things of such nature.
You text her?
All the time.
Yeah. Did you ever cry with her?
No.
No. Oh, I thought
No.
I thought you'd be like, yeah, totally. Yeah.
No, I'm not. I don't cry in public or around other people.
Yeah. Oh, so you do it alone?
Yeah,
You cry a lot or a little?
a little.
Yeah.
Very rarely do I like bawl my eyes out.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. All right. Wish we had more time. We could dig into all the different cries we've had. That's always an interesting, it's a dangerous exercise, but y'all seem pretty happy. So it's always interesting. So Monica, give me a rundown. How did you end up at Roosevelt? What was your path, and why did you choose Roosevelt?
In my senior year of high school, I was still on the edge between theater. I was thinking about stage management specifically. A lot of my directors were pushing me to do that also, and psych. And I felt that theater and art would be always in my life, but psych would always be like a really great direction for me to understand more and learn just a lot more about the human mind. And I realized that helping people was just the passion I wanted. So I looked at different schools that had both psych programs and theater programs. My original thing was that I wanted to do a minor in theater, which I saw both Roosevelt and UIC had. So I was on the fence again. I think I just hang around the fence too much. And I chose Roosevelt because they also had a good minor in creative writing, which is something else I did a lot. It didn't go that way. I'm minoring in women's and gender studies, but it's something I also love. So I went into Roosevelt, and I did not know that we were also the top psych school in the country and a social justice oriented school. So it was both two very pleasant surprises I had when I got here, and honestly made me really even more passionate with helping people and understanding a lot more about sociology and social justice in general, which kind of sparked something inside of me that I was just like, wow, if I didn't go here, I probably wouldn't have known any of that stuff.
So was it easy to pay for college for you?
At first, yes. For my freshman and sophomore year, I did get a lot of financial aid help. So I was able to not take out any loans so far for undergrad. I did start working when I was a freshman. So I knew like my junior year, I would have to pay out a lot more. So I ended up just working throughout. I've been working throughout all of college, but I ended up saving a lot of my paychecks to pay for my junior year, which was more difficult because FAFSA would give me less money, and things with my father also changed with his job. So it was easy at first because I was able to get a good amount of money from financial aid, but it did become more difficult as I started working for myself.
Did you get involved with Trio? Like, I know McNair is its program, but isn't there a program before McNair?
I am in trio now, but I think if I got involved with it a lot sooner, it probably would have helped me a lot with understanding about financial aid and things like that.
For people who aren't familiar with Trio, can you give them a quick summary?
I don't have a lot of time to like actually use it myself because I'm almost graduating, but if you do join it early, they help a lot with just general tutoring and support services like that during your undergrad path. They also help with understanding more of the basics in college, so financial aid, academic advising, things like that. And now for me, this focus is helping me with grad school. Just like McNair is understanding the grad school process, I have more people to look over my personal statement, my resume, and things like that. And they're also helping me understand how to pay for grad school in the future. So, what finance options I have. I think it's a really wonderful program for a lot of people, especially like first gen students who don't have a lot of knowledge on about this stuff on their backs.
So you're in Trio and then you're also in McNair. What's the difference between the two?
I think McNair is a little more hands on. We do attend a lot more sessions, and I think the research aspect is also probably the huge thing about McNair compared to Trio. Trio is a lot more like general college and grad school advice, but McNair is very research centered, and they're trying to help us with specifically research based degrees like PhDs in grad school. But they're both two like really wonderful programs. So I think that's probably the biggest difference.
Do you have a McNair mentor?
I do. Her name is Dr. Leslie Rebecca Bloom. I talked to her earlier today.
What is her role in your life?
I met her as one of my women's and gender studies teacher. We met and she taught a building our own like portfolios and memoirs. So it was memoir in the self. So a lot of the class was us reading excerpts and reading other memoirs from other feminist writers. I took another class with her last semester for action and advocacy. So we read a book, a really amazing book called Hood Feminism. And it was a lot about understanding feministic theories and ideologies and how we need to push away from a white way of thinking into a more diverse intersectional feminist world that includes everybody around. And I love the class. I love Professor Bloom. I feel like she has a great way of introducing these topics. And she was always very supportive of me in everything I did with my work, the things that I wrote. And I felt that she would have been a great mentor for me. And going forward in college and graduate school, she does a lot of social justice research, which is something that I'm super interested in.
So you reached out and said, will you be my mentor?
Pretty much, yeah.
Because that's got to be scary.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I knew that my research project and just my goals is based in psych and not women's and gender study, but I felt that I had such a big passion for both of these things that I had to find a way to combine them together.
That's amazing. So you have this wonderful mentor that's part of your McNair program. Then you have all this other support that's part of the Trio program and are going to be graduating and taking this next step with all the support, which sounds amazing. How's that feel?
It feels good. Yeah, it feels a lot better than when I was really like confused and I had very little support other than me randomly reaching out to my advisor once in a while.
Yeah, that's great. Are either of you, Autumn or Francesca, are you in Trio? No. So you can be in McNair, but not be part of a Trio program. Okay. Francesca, when it comes to being part of McNair, did you have to apply? How do you get into that program?
They send out a few like eligibility emails, just like letting you know, like, hey, if you wanted to, like, you're eligible, you have to fill out the form so they could like actually confirm that you're eligible because their system is kind of automated. And then after that, you meet with the director or one of the directors. And from there, you do like the full blown application. And then you have an interview with the actual director of the program, the head, and the co-director at the same time. So they both get to know you. They both kind of like hear like your life story, why you think you'll be good for McNair, what you'll contribute, things like that. So it's like a full interview. And then you hear back whether or not you got into the program.
Wow. Okay. So anybody who is thinking about an advanced degree or wants to go to grad school, like who would be a great McNair candidate if somebody's listening to this?
Anybody who is first generation, low income, or minority, or a combination thereof, and just has the desire to really go further than undergrad and just willing to like learn and be amongst like peers. You have to, of course, be willing to invest time because it is time consuming with research and things like that. So we do have to spend at least bare minimum like 30 hours a week on the research.
Oh, wow.
And then end of the month, you do have to do a full time sheet of that month. So just anybody who's really willing to put in that work and knowing that it's going to become something. So you're not just doing it and wasting your time. It really does go into your grad school applications, and they do help prepare you for GMAT if you're taking business like me, or GRE if you're into psych and things like that.
Are there any
So
financial benefits?
yeah, so end of the month, you get a stipend. Each year, it depends for the amount, what the school's like willing to give you, but you get, so 3 months, three stipends. And then they do pay for, like I said, any testing. They do pay for the waivers for your grad program, so you don't have to pocket those out. And you can apply to like up to 15 programs, I think. And then all of that's covered when you do apply, so you don't have to pay the application fees. So that's really useful. And then they do pay for you to go to conferences that help with you networking with other McNair scholars. So those do get paid for as well. So there
Yeah,
are quite a few benefits.
that's cool. I think most people don't know about it. I think most high school students have no idea. And Monica, as you were saying, knowing about it soon, like early. What year could you be a freshman and be a McNair scholar?
I think they want to wait to see you complete freshman year and like how well you do and things like that. But I think it's sophomore up.
I think it depends on the amount of credit hours you have. So I don't know the exact number. You have to complete at least a certain amount of credit hours before you're able to apply. So we do have some McNair in our cohort that aren't graduating this year. So they have like another summer to work on their research and things like that.
Gotcha. Autumn, you're one of those people?
Yeah, since I'm graduating a semester later, I'm graduating in December instead of May. So we get extra summer to work on our research. So the McNair class, like the actual summer research class that Monica and Francesca are in, I don't technically qualify for because you can only take the class once, and that's right before you graduate.
So you'll take that right before you graduate, but you don't get to be with your friends. Are you all friends?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We are.
Are you friends? I don't want to make it awkward. You seem very friendly. Francesca, I want to know your story. How did you land at Roosevelt? What was your path?
So I initially went to DePaul for my freshman year to beginning of my junior year. I liked it there. I was very involved. I was literally in like everything, pretty much everything. I was in a cappella, I was in gospel choir, I was in BSU for a little bit, I was in mental health organization. So I was in a lot of stuff at one time. And then financially, it just wasn't what what I initially thought it would be. Even my freshman year, I had to take out a lot of loans because they gave me pretty much a bare minimum as far as aid is concerned. And then they ended up giving me a little bit more my sophomore year, beginning junior year. I didn't really have anything. So it was just me being very aware that they weren't going to give me more because I kept, going up there like the whole night, like going up there, calling, emailing, things like that. So I was like,
Right.
okay, you know what? Clearly this just isn't something that's for me. So I took a year break because I was going through a lot at the time too. So I was just like, this is just overwhelming. I'm not mentally in a place where I can focus and give my all to my education right now. So I took a year break to kind of figure out like what I want to do, where I want to go, and just kind of get my head together. So then I ended up applying to a few different schools, and I was like, like, let me just apply to Roosevelt. They have like a pretty good Princess program. So I'll just see what happens. I'll see if I get in. And so I got in and they actually offered me way more aid, thankfully. I
Mhm.
still had to take out some loans, but definitely not nearly as much that I previously had to.
Yeah.
So I was just like, okay, well, this is where we're gonna go. This is what we're gonna do.
Nice. And how has your experience at Roosevelt been?
It's good. I wish that I could have been on campus because when I got in, it was of course virtual, and I was like, oh, goodness gracious. So it's kind of me not being able to like really be face to face and kind of have that whole experience of like transferring into somewhere new, making friends like the first day of class, like having that whole little experience that I would have loved to have. Um, but other than that, I really, really like it. Probably once we get on campus, I'll try to get more involved because, of course, it'll be easier for me to
Yeah.
at that
Are you
point.
going to live on campus?
No, I'm still gonna live in my apartment with my girlfriend. So
Okay, cool. So I know mental health, really getting through the tough stuff is something really important to all of you. And I would love to know your most uncomfortable experience during your college years. Maybe a time where you were thinking of quitting. Francesca, I could see you've got something there, and I want to understand how you got through it because you're all here, which is amazing. You're all incredible, and I want to understand that. So, Francesca, since we're fresh off of our last question, and I know there's clearly something there. What was your most uncomfortable experience, and how did you get through it?
I was in like a lot of toxic like friendships and like even relationship at the time. Emotionally, I wasn't prepared to really be around people like that. Mentally, I just wasn't focused enough. So I wasn't really like attending classes as frequently as I was. I just kind of like shut down and I really like just shut myself out pretty
You
much.
give us a quick little summary, as much as you're comfortable sharing of what happened and how you were able to get through that?
Like I wasn't at all setting boundaries within like my relationship or my friendship. And I was just really allowing people to kind of treat me as they saw fit, but not as I saw fit for me. And so I just started to do everything for everyone but not at all taking care of myself. Like physically, emotionally, mentally, like none of that. I would just drain myself for other people until like even I knew I had nothing left. But just because like I cared about their well-being so much so that I was just willing to jeopardize my own, pretty much.
Right. What was the rock bottom and how did you lift yourself up?
Honestly, it was me just realizing their intentions and even the people around me who I still have around me till this day were kind of slowly trying to and tell me very nicely, but you just don't want to believe certain things and you don't want to hear certain things. And even though I had a gut feeling, I was like, no, like never, like that's not happening.
Right.
It definitely took those people like coming to my face and actually like admitting everything and like even me hearing the toxicity and like everything that they were saying the whole time. And I was just like, okay, so clearly
Yeah.
this is what's happening.
And you're a people pleaser.
Definitely,
Which,
definitely. Not so much anymore.
right. That connects back to your high school years of wanting to be liked and not wanting to upset people and putting up with things that really didn't feel right.
Mhm.
And you continue to do that. So that was in college, your first year, that this really
Yeah.
most difficult for you. Right. And now you're in a good place. That's great.
Yes.
I'm happy that you're with someone. I don't know if you mentioned before, and again, with boundaries, did you mention your girlfriend, or is that just like someone you're with, or are you with a girlfriend?
Yes, my baby. He's actually in the other room.
Oh, yay. Well, that's wonderful. And also when it comes to, LGBTQ plus and having a balance in your life and feeling connection and community and all that. How has your Roosevelt experience been?
It's been good. I think I'm trying to find like more community. And of course, it's going to be easier once I get on campus. But I definitely feel like the appreciation, like even like from McNair scholars, like and all that. Sometimes we'll talk about our personal lives, and everybody will just be like, "Oh," and it's just, it's just like how supportive like everyone is, and I'm just like, it's nice. It's a very nice feeling.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I'm glad you found some light in your life that is healthy and wonderful. Monica, I would love to have a better handle of some of the challenges you faced. And I know you're a big supporter of mental health, and I'm always curious to know if there was a challenge and if there was an uncomfortable experience and if you can share that so we can learn.
Yeah. So my freshman year of college, I did get a job, which was nice. Like every college student has this love and they want, to start working. I chose a job that was incredibly toxic that I didn't know was an incredibly toxic environment. A lot of the basics of like management was poor. We were understaffed, a lot of things like that. I ended up working a lot my freshman year, almost 40-hour weeks on top of my full-time school schedule, which was not fun being 18 years old. Also, it being my first job, kind of a lot of the time made it think that it was my fault, especially with the management. It was a small business, so it's kind of that small community vibe where everybody knows everything about you. And my manager would try to become like everyone's best friend, but she was also the one that was causing a lot of the problems. So it almost felt it was my fault that I had to put on all these work hours, or if I did something wrong, I should have taken it personally. So it was just a lot of toxicity from that workplace. And it took me a long time to quit. I was there for about 9 months. And I knew it was a problem within the first 3 months. But because I was so young and I was so naive, I didn't understand that it was a problem. And I thought I could just like get through it and it'll be okay. And the only thing that really made me realize I had to quit was like these new people coming into my life and like the spring semester of that year. And I just found that when I hung out with them, I was just a lot more happier. I had a lot more, I didn't have any free time at all. But when I had like the one day off and I was able to talk to like all my friends, it was better than my regular life. So I kind of realized that I want to choose to be happy instead of being overworked and burnt out.
So what advice do you have for someone else who's in a job that just doesn't feel good?
I think bluntly you should quit. But of course, that's not like something everyone can do. I think that you should, if you realize that your job and your boss and things like that aren't respecting your time, they're not respecting you as a person or anything like that, it's up to you to find the courage and find just the confidence to quit and find something new.
Is there something with the mental health piece? Was there a time where you had to get help?
No, thankfully. I think therapy is amazing and everyone should go to it. That's just not me. That's not me like saying like, oh, don't go to therapy. I think if you have the opportunity, I know like a lot of colleges offer free therapy to their students. I think that's something amazing you should do. I've been able to keep like things under control for myself, which I'm grateful for. But if there ever is a time where I need to, I know I have a community that supports it and I have a school that also helps me and supports me with getting therapy and
Yeah,
things like that.
that's terrific. Was there a time where you ever thought of quitting?
Jokingly, not seriously. I feel like I owe a lot to my family, so it's never been like such a prominent thing in my head. But especially with the pandemic and everything happening with the transition, it was definitely a tiring time. And
Yeah.
it was just like in my head, it was like, oh, if I just worked full time, it would be easier. But I knew that deep down, two things: I had a lot to owe for my family and my parents and everything that they've done for me. And also, I love learning and I love progressing and things like this. So I think quitting is something that some people can do if they feel like they have to and they feel like that's their right path. But I would advise you to like keep trying and keep talking to people and things like that.
Have you taken advantage of any tutoring or any academic support at Roosevelt?
I haven't. I've definitely asked friends to like read over papers and things like that. Roosevelt does have a lot of good resources. We have a writing center and things like that to help us with tutoring and if we're struggling with certain subjects. So if there's like any freshmen or incoming prospective high school students, I think going to those resources is a great thing. I needed to work on that when I was a freshman though.
Yeah. Awesome. Autumn. So what's an uncomfortable experience you had? You know, you've had a bunch of changes and challenges, and how did you get through it?
I think for me, it would have to have been picking my friends. I am no longer friends with any of the people I met my freshman year. Very seldomly. My ROTC friends, I still talk to them, but outside of that, I didn't really talk to any of those. A lot of my friend groups, we fell apart for whatever reason. Typically, it was them having an issue with me, not so much myself having done anything wrong, but they painted me as the bad guy, and I was excluded from a lot of things. So I think that choosing your friends, especially your first year, is very, very important. And I feel like when you go to college, you're there to learn, not so much to socialize. Socializing is a bonus. Being able to find good friends is a bonus. So it's very important that people are careful with who they let into their lives, because the outcome can influence the rest of your life.
How have you made close friends at Roosevelt? Where are the places where you found them?
So last semester alone, I had so many classes with like friends, and now I have this friend group that I hang out with, and they're like absolutely awesome. We all shared like at least one class together last semester. So it's really cool. They're pretty dope people.
What groups or organizations?
I'm a part of Castix, but I just joined that like at the very end of last semester. So I'm still fairly new to that one. I'm also part of BSU, which is the Black Student Union, which is also very interesting. I'm a part of STEM, which has been very helpful. And then Mansfield, which has been more of a summer focused thing, but once the summer's over, our fellowship will still be going strong. So it's really cool. Like I met some amazing people through them as well.
What's Mansfield?
Mansfield Fellowship is actually a new student organization that deals with social justice. That is their like main focus. It's ran by Professor Heather Dalmage, who is absolutely amazing. She is a sociology professor, and we focus on a lot of social justice movements like activism and things of such nature. And a lot of what we're doing this summer was our internships, which had something to do with some social justice project in some aspect, and activism, if you will. But for me, it was the Southeast Environmental Task Force. That's where I'm doing my internship for the summer. So my social justice project this summer was more environmental than, let's say, like protesting.
So when somebody hears social justice, if they're in high school and they know that Roosevelt is really strong when it comes to social justice, can you explain what that means?
To me, social justice is like advocating for the rights of others, or being that voice that stands out in the crowd, that is trying to bring awareness to an issue or topic that is close to your heart. There are so many programs dedicated to social justice in Roosevelt, because Roosevelt is a very strong social justice centered university. They care very much about getting people involved and their students having a voice, especially when it comes to issues and topics that are of great interest to them. So I think it is wonderful. I did not originally know that Roosevelt was a social justice school when I was integrated in, but I quickly found out that that was like a mission statement. And I was like, this is amazing to know that there was a university out there that is advocating for the people, by the people, as people. It's very important.
Do you feel like you have a place? I know that in high school, we talked earlier in the very beginning of the conversation about, wanting to please people and you being you, have you found that place where you can be you and you can have community and connection?
I think that I have, if not in like the different programs that I'm part of or activities, definitely in my friend group, my little friend circle. I feel more open and involved. I feel more of myself and welcomed instead of like an outcast, because for the most of my life, like growing up in the shadow of my older siblings, I've always felt like an outcast. I never really felt like I fit in, but I definitely feel like I fit in a little more.
You do. I didn't know you felt like an outcast.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now you found your place and your people. That's absolutely wonderful. We're going to wrap things up in just a moment, all of you. You've been so generous with your time, and I'm so grateful. We had a really thoughtful conversation, a really interesting conversation. Francesca, when it comes to you finding friends, connection, and community, have you had a chance to find those at Roosevelt yet?
I feel like for me, the McNair scholars were a huge part of that, just because, I didn't have the opportunity to go on campus and things like that yet. So the scholar program was kind of my way of like finding those connections and finding those friends. And we actually all met for the first time like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah. And like, I feel like I had known you guys like forever. We were all like cracking jokes, like laughing, like we like have been like friends for such a long time. So it's just like really nice to have that experience with everyone, even though of course, like I hope at Roosevelt, like I will when we get in person. But for right now, like you guys are my friends. The scholars are literally my friends and my Roosevelt family. So it's really nice to have that at least during this time. So
Yeah. So McNair's been your place.
yes.
That's awesome. I have one last question for you all. And before I ask the last question, I always like to give you an opportunity to clear up anything or explain anything that maybe we didn't talk about in detail that you wanted to share, or some other advice or insight you want to offer to someone who's, in middle school or high school and going through this process and see you and are like, I can never be you. How did you get here? I think I might even ask you, like, Autumn, like, what do you say to that 13-year-old who's like, I don't even know how I can get there? Can I be you? Like, how does someone get to be you?
Higher education is definitely a journey. I feel like it's a journey that everyone should at least try to experience. We are all such unique people, and it is so important that we go out into the world with high expectations and that we try to gain as much knowledge and experience as possible, because sometimes in the most unexpected places, at the most unexpected times, you might meet some very great people who will become a part of your journey for the rest of your life. I think that sometimes all it takes is that one step outside of your own little box for you to see the world in a different light.
Yeah. And Monica, how does someone get to be you?
I've done this more recently. I think that it's okay to be afraid of things, a lot of things you don't know about, things that you look at and you're like, I want to do that, but I don't know how. And I think that going towards that, those fears, not like, I don't know. If you want to swim with sharks, you can swim with sharks. I wouldn't do that. But if it's something that you've always wanted to do, but you've been too afraid to do it, I think going ahead and at least taking the first step in that direction is something that anyone can do, that anyone, if you want to try to do. And I think getting help along the way is probably the best way to become more confident in yourself and your abilities. And I think also it'll help you grow a lot more connections with other people as well.
And does it stop being scary, or does it always keep scaring you?
I think one day it might stop being scary, but if it's still scary, that's also fine. So if one day you realize, like, I'm not afraid of this anymore, that's great. But if you're also still a little scared about it, that's also okay.
That's great. I don't know if do you have anything to add to that, Francesca?
Got to follow up. I think it's just important to realize that it's okay to, take a mental break, an emotional break, in whatever way that means, and just kind of self-reflect. There's really no timeline for your education, to be honest. Like, people go to school later, people finish earlier, but never go through life feeling rushed. It's okay to really take your time and figure yourself out, figure out what you want for yourself, what you want for your future, what your future looks like for you, ideally, and take the steps to do that. And it's fine if it takes you a little bit longer.
I love that. So that wasn't the last question. That was kind of an additional question. But the last question, and it may be a similar answer, but if you could go back in time and see high school you, Autumn, you get to go back to Zion Benton High School and Minor High School, and we get to see you, and somehow you're who you are. You're wearing your pain is temporary, victory is forever shirt, and you get to see this freshman you, and you're like, hey, come here, psst, I got to tell you something, and you get to share some wisdom. Autumn, what would you tell high school freshman you?
It would probably be something along the lines of, it's going to be okay. Just keep moving forward. Or I would probably tell myself to step out of my box more and focus on my education. Not that I never did. I was actually a very intelligent child, but to give it a little more thought, to be more conscious of what I wanted to do. I did change my major like twice before I actually got to college. So I did change my major a few times. So I would probably just tell myself to like focus on what I want to do, focus on becoming the best me possible, and then keep moving forward.
Perfect. Francesca, what would you tell high school freshman you?
I would probably just tell myself that I'm worthy of more than what I think, and that it's okay that people don't understand me, because I don't need to explain who I am to anyone. If they understand me, that's amazing, and we'll have that connection for a lifetime. If they don't, maybe they will later in life. And if they just don't at all, that's okay. But just really learning to not explain who I am or what I want for myself, because people think that I might deserve a little bit less than that. So it's probably what I would tell myself.
I love that. Monica, if you can go back to see high school freshman Monica, what would you tell you?
The first thing I would say is that I know you're scared of literally everything, but that's okay. The things that you're making and the things that you're doing are great work. And a lot of people are going to believe in you, which is something I never thought would happen. A lot of people care about you, and don't overthink it too much. I overthought a lot. I still overthink a lot. But I think if I told myself younger than me that it's going to be okay, I think she would appreciate that.
Yeah. Do you all agree that it's going to be okay? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's a journey along the way. And you're all so wonderful and brave. And I'm grateful that we can have the chance to talk. And if there are any people who are watching this and say, hey, I'm interested in McNair, I'm interested in Roosevelt, I'm interested in these experiences or any of the personal lessons that you've experienced, are you cool with people reaching out to you, asking you questions? Is that good? Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Not weird.
Yeah.
So if someone wants help, you're like, I'm willing to help, right? Yeah.
Yes. Feel free.
Yeah. I mean, that's why you do this. And I just want people to know, because the gift of being able to spend this time with you and share your stories is that now there are more people who are in other people's corner, young people's corner, people who haven't experienced this. And as you continue on your journeys, if there's anything I could do to help you in any way, if there's anybody who I know, you can find me through LinkedIn or social media or whatever. I'm so happy to help, because all I want is for you to live a life of joy, overflowing with happiness, love, and light, and just aligning with the things that fill you up with happiness, and being part of that journey. If there's anything I shared or ways that I could share it better, or being more sensitive in some way, I'm always open. That all I want to do is connect and learn. So thank you for being here and being so kind. And for everybody who's watching, I want to thank Autumn and Francesca and Monica, all McNair scholars from Roosevelt University. Thank you all for being here. I'm grateful to be here, and I look forward to continuing not only the conversation with all of you, but anybody who's out there. I look forward to being in your corner. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.